This is a way to come on hot, man.
You gotta come in hot.
Yes.
You gotta bring the thunder.
Oh man, so many good memories as a kid growing up, watching those guys just come out of the bullpen in left field, just knowing like being a Cubs fan, you've suffered through many losing seasons, and you know, I remember a lot of close losses where the other teams bring that guy in, and it's like, oh, shit, you know it's over.
Oh man.
Good morning, Jay.
Good morning, sir.
We are going high volume, high velo today, talking about relievers.
Who used to come sprinting out? I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but who comes sprinting out hot and heavy as hard as they can? I'm trying to think. Melanson? Doesn't Melanson come running out?
I don't know. I'll tell you what, I got a throwback for you.
Think about this.
Well, let's address our audience first.
Okay.
Good morning, guys. This is Jason.
I'm Jay.
Fantasy Baseball. I have kids in the house. We got a rockin' show, a rockin' loading. I can't do this. I'm not enough coffee.
Me either.
All right, we got a good show for you guys. You guys better pay attention today.
We're talking about relievers today.
And then we got a couple special guests coming on a little bit later on.
Yes.
So please stay tuned.
Some co-owners in the co-owners, not fellow owners in both of our fantasy baseball leagues. So these guys share our passion for fantasy baseball, and you know, oddly enough, I would have thought that both of them. I wanted to say one of them, but I think both of them maybe haven't been doing fantasy baseball quite as long as we have. I think Jeff said he was a little later to the game with fantasy baseball, but that he does like every sport. Like he just loves fantasy sports, period, and he's learning to love baseball.
I'm so excited.
A few weeks ago that, but I would have thought he was in love with it years ago, a couple years ago. So, but anyways, and Chuck.
Jeff, I'm going to say this, and Jeff will hear this later when he listens. Given Jeff's track record and the personality I know of him from playing against him, if Jeff was a position, like in fantasy baseball, he would be a closer, hands down.
Yeah.
I really feel like it because Jeff comes at you, and you guys will see later on. Jeff comes at you hard and fast, guys, and sometimes his control can be a bit erratic, but more often than not, he's going to blow gas by you, and you're not going to know what hit you.
He's got the cheese.
So, anyways, we're done with our cheesy analogies. We're going to talk about some the relief pitcher landscape in regard to deep category leagues. Again, our specialty. Jay and I are going to throw some numbers at you. We are not ranking people one off today. This is the one position in our preview breakdown where we've got them subdivided into categories. And when I say categories, I mean we labeled them. And to be honest, I'm going to let Jay go first, but I'll get into what we're looking for in relievers. But for the purposes of keeping this show not 3 hours long, we've got 50 names. And I feel like this is a good halfway point for talking about the bullpen arms that you can deploy, because some teams are okay with 2 to 3 relievers. Other teams prefer to run out 5 or 6 relievers. I tend to be on the deeper side. And so relief pitcher talent is something to be had all over the draft and on the free agent wire. So without further ado, Jay, I'd like to introduce my most memorable childhood closer.
Okay.
That is Mr. Rod Beck. That mullet, that curly mullet, that big mustache, beer gut running on. If Mr. Beck yourself is listening to this, I mean, no shame. You rock that beer gut.
He was ahead of his time.
Oh man. So you...
Andrew Chafin is about the only guy I can think of right now that's got a mullet that even compares to something like that.
How many teams did that guy close for? Cubs, Giants. I really enjoyed, as a kid, watching that guy. Sorry. Little transition there.
Mustache.
It is. Are you looking at it?
I mean, I'm just looking at this.
Yeah, I told you.
This Instagram
It's
story
surreal.
is talking about how he's 29 years old in this picture, but he looks like he's 48 years old. Yeah, he sure does.
He pulled it up like crazy.
Born in 1968 in Burbank, California. So
You know,
there you go. That
yeah,
tells you everything you need to know.
I think we could get ourselves in trouble here making some jokes. I think we'll
Probably.
we'll use this as a transition to
About
talk
the mustache,
I mean, mustache,
flavor saver.
Well, I was thinking like, you're gonna get me in trouble.
You set.
I set this
You're
up.
gonna
All
get
right.
me in trouble, Jason.
All right, let's go. Let's go with this show because we got some special guests coming on later.
All right, yeah,
so,
we gotta get
Jay,
going.
I'll start with you. When you are looking at relievers, whether it be at the draft table or on the free agent wire, and without asking you to tip your cap too much, what are some of the things that you're looking for in a reliever?
Well, I'm gonna tip your cap too much because I think you pretty much nailed it with your list here. Of
So
what
do you
you're
want to
looking
say
for,
this is
but
what we're both looking for in a reliever?
I would say so. I mean, I'm looking. I'll tell you what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the minuscule ERA and whoop. I haven't. I gotta keep working on this coffee. Whip, I'm looking for a lot of usage. Hopefully a lot of innings. I'm looking for a real high strikeout ratio, if I can get it. I think in the historically, and we talked about this a little last year on the podcast, how the guys who were the going into the highest leverage situations, no matter what inning it was, were becoming incredibly valuable in fantasy. Now you look at this year's list of relievers and our top, 15 to 20, there are more what we would say outright closers in this year's list. But I'm still looking for the same, hopefully a lot of usage, great ratios, high strikeout rate, and, I'm looking for that fuel and that fire, and I'm looking for that guy who's lights out, right? Like you said, and there is a difference between, the guy who's just lights out that everybody knows, it's over, man.
There is. There truly is. And, to your lights out sentiment, I will say this is kind of the story of relievers. I know there's not very many of them in the Hall of Fame because they come and they go, and they were here and they were gone. Just
obviously in today's world, there's more guys throwing 100 miles per hour, right? So there's more of that. There's even more of the lights out mentality. Can I speak to how someone did that in the 1970s and 1980s as well, or 1990s, whatever, as well as I can the last couple decades in baseball? No, but I mean, it was similar, but now these guys are throwing 97 to 100 miles an hour. And we're going to talk about that a little bit with some of these guys on this list.
We are. One last thing I want to sneak in before I start talking about specifically what I'm looking for in a reliever. As you mentioned, guys coming and throwing 100. That's not nothing. That's huge.
It's not nothing.
However,
you see what these teams do to get a collection of these guys, right? I mean, as many of those guys basically as you can get,
Yes, but however, that's a double. I shouldn't transition like that. However, if you're throwing 100 miles per hour, you better have movement because flat 100 miles an hour, these hitters are going to knock that thing out of the park.
It's true. We can talk about this a little bit with some of these guys and their fastball usage.
You know who comes to mind with that?
Who?
I know this is not a reliever, but Dylan Bundy. Dylan Bundy never lived up to his potential because his four-seamer was just straight flat. Straight plane, wherever it was going, it was like a meatball. And,
what you're talking about bears itself out in the numbers in a couple of these guys. Okay, statistics over the last couple of years. So we can, there is definitely a conversation to be had about that.
That's why sliders get so many batters out.
Right.
You get a four-seamer, high velo, a little bit of movement, take a couple ticks off the velo, all of a sudden you got something whipping across the plate like a diagonal. Mm-hmm. Like, it's going to get you every time almost.
Yeah, I mean, you got a couple of these guys throwing sinking fastballs that are out of this world fast. You got some guys you got Camilo Duvall throwing a 100-mile-an-hour cutter.
Yeah, that...
Again, he's a guy who...
Talking about cutter.
There's
that
a whip. Some of these guys, it's like you want to see this whip. Like I start to get a little worried.
Yeah.
Well,
let's not blow our wad here, Jay. Like, I wrote down 5 things I'm looking for in a reliever, and I think, Jay, it sounds like you agree with me by and large for the most part. So it goes like this. For those of you out there drafting, whether you're in a 10, 12, 15, 16, 20, 24 team league, whatever, this is, again, more catered towards the 15, 16, 20, 24 team leagues, but this also does play in a shallower format. Number 1, I'm looking for results. I want guys to get saves if you play in a league with holds, which we do. A lot of deeper leagues do. I want guys that are going to get holds. And I also I don't put no stock in the relievers that have a history of getting wins. Because that means that the managers trust them in high leverage situations. So that's number 1. I want relievers that are going to get results. Number 2, as when I look at my relievers, you got to have a whip, walked hits per inning pitch, lower than 1.2. If your whip's going to be 1.2 or higher, and there are a few on here, you better have something else to bring to the table. Because, relievers are only in for so many innings, so you've got to have the most impact that you can get in that little amount of time. And if you're walking people and that whip is too high, your value decreases greatly. So you got to have a whip, in my opinion, lower than 120. Number 3, K per 9 above a K an inning. Or at the very least, at a K an inning. I want to see if my guy's in for 1 inning, 1 and 2/3, 2 innings, he better have the strikeouts to equate to the innings that he's pitching over his whole body of work. Because that shows me he has multiple ways of getting guys out.
Right.
I worry the guys who have less than a strikeout per 9 rely on too much pitch to contact. And when you're pitching in a high leverage situation later in the game, don't get me wrong, that pitch to contact is a valuable tool. Getting
Absolutely.
those ground balls, having a high ground ball rate is a very important tool.
Yeah, however, they just don't tend to stay in the highest of leverage rules. It's not a sustainable.
Yes, because in those situations, if you're
there are
reliant,
exceptions to that.
Yes, there are. But if you're reliant on getting those grounders, and you don't have the strikeout arsenal, then batters are going to recognize that, and you're not going to be successful. Number 4, I want relievers who pitch on good teams. This kind of ties into number 1. Relievers who pitch on good teams, and it doesn't have to be the best teams in baseball, i.e. the Dodgers or the Braves or the Astros, but just teams that are going to win over 80 games. So at least a team that you can reasonably project to go 500. So that way they have enough chance to get volume and results. And then finally, number 5, I want relievers I'm looking for a reliever every year. Maybe a couple, because it takes a while to find out the one that I want. But depending on the league you play in, there's SP spots, there's RP spots, and there's P spots on your roster. If you've got your RPs and your Ps full of relievers, sometimes it helps to have a relief pitcher with starting pitcher eligibility who you know isn't a starter, but he might be throwing bulk innings and is a good chance to get a result. I like to have relief pitchers who have starting pitcher eligibility. So those are the 5 things that I'm mainly looking for in relievers. That being said, I had fun. I found 50 relievers that I would hold in high regard, and I'm sure that there's several others that belong in this list, but we don't have the time in the day to talk about over 100 relievers today. So I picked out 50 and just kind of broke them down into some groups. Lockdown RP1 with results, and we'll go on and so forth. There's some strikeout specialists, some whip specialists, and then your standard RP2s.
The firemen.
And the firemen, yeah. I tried to identify the way I looked at this, Jay, ranking these, not ranking, but collecting these 50 names. I chose 50 names that, depending on how deep or shallow your bullpen was, I would feel at least satisfied with my first 2 RP spots.
Yeah.
So, in other words, some people may want some of these guys and they're RP 3, 4, 5. I'm just trying to give you a solid baseline for at least your first 2 relief pitcher spots with these 50 names.
Yeah. In your shallow leagues, you can fill an entire bullpen with these names. In your deeper leagues, the work goes on all year long, where you're looking for dependable relievers, high leverage relievers, and that changes. Obviously, that changes and ebbs and flows for each team, and people lose their jobs, and people get injured, and people all this stuff. So obviously, it's a continual work in progress. Your bullpen, especially in these deeper leagues.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, that being said, what do you think about this list I'm creating here, Jay? You want to kind of... How do you want to attack this? You want to...
Well,
I noticed you have some stats written down.
I have compiled 2022 and 2023 stats for most of the guys near the top of your list. So as we go through some of these names, I'm gonna pick apart some of these statistics a little bit and see what we can figure out about some of these guys, if they meet these demands that you're looking for in a reliever. Because one of the things that sticks out here is some of the guys at the top of this list, to be honest with you, there's some glaring things there where, some of these guys have way better ratios. Some of these guys have way better strikeout ratios than some of the other guys. So I know these aren't ranked in priority order for you, but I'm gonna push back on you a little bit and see if you really think that, I'm gonna make you try to rank them a little bit, because
I love this. Thank you.
And one of the first things that comes to mind is are we playing on a good team here? Who's gonna get the most saves out of Duran and Emmanuel Class A? That's a fair question.
With that being said, let's talk about these relievers I've got in this first category. So, I start off with what I like to call lockdown RP1. Now, look, these are categories that are fluid. Some relievers are going to fall out of this category. Some relievers are going to work their way into this category. But when I say lockdown RP1, I'm talking about the guys that any format, even the shallowest format, these are the aces of your bullpen. Without hesitation, these are the pillars of the relief pitcher pool. I'm not ranking them, one off, so I will just say their name, but this is in no way, shape, or form indicative of where I rank them amongst this grouping of players. It's just the players I have as lockdown RP1. So, Edwin Diaz, Joan Duran, Devin Williams, Emmanuel Clase, Pete Fairbanks, Josh Hader. That's my initial lockdown RP1.
So Edwin Diaz, as we all know, last year in the World Baseball Classic had the torn patellar tendon, I believe it was, the freak injury during the celebration, and basically didn't pitch at all in 2023. I don't know, maybe there was a couple innings in September or something when he finally got healthy. But anyways,
I think he
essentially
was working his way back from a minor league. I'm not even sure if he got it. Basically, the Mets were out of it, and they could have brought him back, but they chose not to.
Right,
so he did not pitch.
So the good news is he was basically healthy by the end of last season. He's had a full off season here. Anything else you want to say about this guy? I mean, what else is there to say? If you go back to 2022, talk about minuscule ERA and
He's
WHIP.
got one of the biggest contracts for relievers out there. So, I mean...
Right. I mean,
there's... based on money
right.
pays.
I mean, if you want job security, this is your guy, right? So, in 2022, he had a 1.31 ERA, a WHIP of .84, and
there you go, right there.
118 strikeouts in 62 innings.
That's what you want. Who cares about the ERA?
Inning?
The ERAs are flukish and team dependent, but that WHIP... Repeat that again. .84.
.84
and he had a .84 WHIP over how many innings?
62 innings.
And how many strikeouts? 118. So 60
strikeouts
times 2 is 120. Yeah. He basically had an 18 almost an 18 K per 9. That's insane.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Even for a reliever, that's,
Enough said.
Enough said.
And that's what you want. That's why he's in this tier. Grouping.
So you've got Duran next on your list. I know these aren't ranked, but just to look at his last couple years' stats, okay? In 2022, he in 62.2 innings, he had a 1.86 ERA, a .98 WHIP. Pretty awesome. 89 strikeouts in 62 innings. So in that year, he had 8 saves and 18 holds. Last year, in 2023, a 2.45 ERA, 1.14 WHIP, 84 strikeouts in 62 innings, 27 saves and only 1 hold. So pretty much only exclusively used in save situations in 2023.
Hold the fort, though. This is what I want to say about Johan Duran. With Johan Duran, what amazes me the most, do you know that he throws 104 miles per hour? He had more over 100-mile-per-hour pitches. I don't have the stat in front of me. I was reading it the other day. But he had, I believe, the most 100-mile-per-hour plus pitches in baseball last year.
And this goes...
On a per inning basis, I think. Yes.
This goes to the point of the excellence of MLB hitting and how. You can throw 104 and still your ratios can go up. Still you can, in these save situations, you are going to give up some hits. You're going to give up some, and I mean, he's excellent, obviously, but it just kind of goes to the point of you better have some movement on that. You better have a few pitches. You better have a few ways to get guys out.
I mean,
the league will adjust and will do better against you, but he's still done great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with these ratios,
so
really.
He plays for an analytically driven franchise and the Minnesota Twins, and I love what they've leaned into. It's, oh my God, Pablo Lopez. I'm going to drool over talking about him on our SP podcast because this is what the Twins are doing. They're taking very, very talented pitchers, and they're getting the best out of them. We're going to talk about this later again, but there's a few other franchises that have really tailor-made this fine art. And, I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. If you pitch for the Rays, the Dodgers, the Braves, the Twins, or the Mariners, you get as many of those starters and relievers as you can on your team because those 5 franchises, those 5 ball clubs, they know pitching. That's all I'm going to say. Johan Duran's numbers may have regressed a little bit. I mean, you're talking minuscule regression here. he was used as a fireman more in 2022. In 2023, you're right. He was used more exclusively as a closer. But he's kind of that hybrid reliever that can do that. And, I believe his walk rate increased just a little bit. It wasn't bad by any means. But when you're throwing gas like that and you get a few walks, you got to change something when you have runners on base. And ultimately, that probably knocked in a few more runs on him. And there you go. That's the difference between a 1.70 ERA and a 2.4, which they're both elite.
Right.
So.
Yeah, when you're talking about, giving up home runs, those ratios change like that. And then when you're throwing 103, sometimes you're going to say, here, hit this.
Yeah.
Hit this, buddy. Okay, so next on your list.
Let's just go through these names because obviously, if there's a stat that pops out to you, we'll say it. But again, I want to cover these 50 names and get to our special guest, but we might have to include them as part of it.
Devin Williams, talk about minuscule ERA in 2023. He had a 1.53 whip, 1.53 ERA, 0.92 whip, 87 strikeouts in 58 innings. 36 saves and no holds, so exclusively a closer at this point. As we know, throughout his career, he's kind of transitioned from the second best guy in the bullpen to being just the outright, closer in his bullpen. So, just the excellent ratios.
But yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that. It'll be interesting to see if he stays with the Brewers now that they've traded Corbin Burns. If the Brewers are going to unload him and some others. But he is definitely, no matter where he goes, he is a lockdown RP1 in my opinion. I think the rest of this goes without saying. Class A, Fairbanks, Hader. You know what you're going to get with them. They are elite.
Yeah, I mean...
Anything you want to push back?
Well, with Class A, there's the strikeout rate isn't as high as with some of these other guys. So in his ERA, I don't want to say balloon, but it went up to 3.2 after.
What was his whip?
It went from 0.73 in 2022 to 1.16 in 2023, and the ERA went from 1.3 to 3.2. So, and the strikeout rate went down a little bit. He pitched 72.2 innings in both seasons. Was there something in his contract about going to 73 innings? I had to ask myself that with a couple of these guys because of where they stopped.
My justification on Class A is simple. He meets criteria for getting results. He's probably your most bankable results saves guy on this
over
board.
40 saves
because the way
the
Cleveland uses him, he is not only exclusively a closer, he is your 90s version of the exclusive closer.
Some of those guys you're talking about, these, for me, the part of the problem with Hader and even as we get in this next list with Jordan Romano is their usage. But Class A's got plenty of innings, like we said, which I'm over 70 innings is better for me than 50 something. You're paying this much for a guy.
Is it your RP1 or your RP3? Because if I get a 50-inning guy, what did you say? Edwin Diaz had 118 strikeouts and 62 innings. So relievers can be, and that's
you're making
exception.
up for it when your ratios are like that.
Relievers can be very effective with 50 innings of work. They just got to stand out somewhere.
Sure.
But let's go down to this next list of players, this next group. So we have...
How about Hader's off year in 2022 where he had an ERA over 5 and a whip of 1.3?
There was reports that he had a lot of personal issues going on at home. He also got traded.
Sure.
That was the year he got traded, right? That's gonna fuck with anybody,
sure, absolutely.
Uprooting your family and going from one point, especially if you're going through some stuff.
36 saves during that season, so
still bankable. I actually think, and now that he's with Houston, I didn't include them in those 5 franchises that no pitching, but they're close. They're on that next grouping of of ball clubs that are good with their pitching. But that's a close-knit group of their management and their coaches and the front office. They work well together. So I have a feeling that Josh Hader's going to settle in right at home there. And I think you're going to see a major bounce-back season from him. Not that we need to. Next group of players, RP1 with results. So these also are pitchers that I would label as potential RP1s. Not potential. I would feel comfortable with this group of players as my relief pitcher 1 in any format. They're not the standouts the previous group was, but they're going to get you results. I'll just go through these names really quick. We got Andres Munoz,
Ryan Helsley,
Evan Phillips, Tanner Scott. Tanner Scott had 104 strikeouts with a .99 whip last year. Like, where did he come from? He was there.
I mean, they continue to right. They've kept trying to throw him into the high leverage situations and rely on him. Like they've given him, I feel like, opportunity after opportunity, and it's finally paying off. So I think that's, for me, when I look at that, I realize, like, okay, this guy is good. You know that when they look at him, they see the coaching staff and the scouts and the whoever, they know that this guy is good. They know what they're seeing. They know he's good. And so I like that. That tells you something when you keep getting put in that situation and it finally pays off.
It did.
Yeah.
It did. And it paid off big time.
Mm-hmm.
So also in this group, Raisel Iglesias, David Bednar, Camilo Duvall, Jordan Romano, and Clay Holmes. Now, as I was looking on my 50, this is kind of where it stops of what I'm comfortable with as my RP1. Some others would differ, but I feel like if you can get a pitcher from one of these two groups to be your if you can get a pitcher from one of these two groups as your RP1, then you are then you're doing pretty good. So anything about this?
A lot. I don't know. There's a lot going on here.
There is.
A couple of these guys have dealt with injuries. You got Munoz, who, I mean, it's interesting to me that there are questions right now about whether I feel like Munoz, look at the bullpen, like, isn't he going to be mostly a closer? Like, he's going to get the lion's share. Like, there's all these questions about how many of the save opportunities he's going to get. And it goes back to what you said, that these are analytics-driven teams, that it just depends. If they decide they're going to put him in high-leverage situations no matter what, you could be looking at more of a mix.
Well, they got one other guy there that's a little bit later on in my list that I'm identifying that might take
last year
saves.
He was, and last year he was split basically evenly between
Paul
saves and
Sewald
holds.
Was on the team.
Right,
year,
exactly.
Paul Sewald.
Right, he's gone. He's in Arizona now.
It's
so
him and Matt Brash.
Right.
And I think they like Brash in the 8th and Munoz in the 9th.
I think
but
so
yeah,
too.
They're
transitioning from Brash he's not established in that role yet. He will be, but he's been transitioning from starter to reliever in the major leagues and maybe in the minor leagues as well.
That knuckle curve is pretty nasty. Mm-hmm. He's got to get those walks under control now.
All right, are we trying to bring our guests on the air right now?
I think right now would be a good time to bring our guests in because we're breaking from the RP1s and the guys that are closer to RP2s or specialists. So, but yeah, anyways, as we do that, I do want to hit on this next subgroup right here. We have our firemen. Guys performing really well. Brian Abreu, Matt Strom, Reynaldo Lopez, and Jose Alvarado. 4 guys. Lots to digest there. These guys are the guys. Now, there's more firemen than just these 4, but I like these 4 in fireman roles because you can see them in the 7th, the 8th, or the 9th, and they're throwing gas.
Or could you see them as a starter? What is going on with Reynaldo Lopez? There was a couple of big sources that were saying they're going to stretch him back out as a starter when he came to Atlanta. I think that's a mistake. I think he's finally got to where he could be so effective in this high leverage relief role. But they were talking about that. Now, what's changed? I don't know. I was trying to read the headlines like last night and today and see like what has changed between November and now, because that's what they were talking about. I think it's probably a mistake. I think one of the things I looked at with him was, as a starter a few years ago, which we know he's transitioned kind of over the last couple of years from starter to reliever. He's done both in some of these seasons, but as a starter, his fastball average velocity in the 95s. In 2022, as a reliever, fastball average velocity 97.1. In 2023, it was 98.2. This guy throws freaking gas.
Yeah,
dude.
this is kind of like what Blake Snell would do in the playoff back in that 2020 COVID season when they were like, well, we'll just max you out for 4 innings and we'll go to the bullpen. Because when guys are able to just make shorter stints, then they can throw harder. Yeah.
And he is perplexing because, he's had brief periods of success as a starter and even been able to go 6-7 innings in a game.
I agree with you, Jay.
But he's also gotten,
I think Reynaldo Lopez needs to be mostly a bullpen arm. But
are we doing video or just calling him? I know that our viewers obviously can't see them on video.
Whatever you want to do.
We don't have the technological capabilities for this yet, but
let's just get these guys on. While we're getting them on, though, I want to say something. This is a statistic, and if they interrupt me, that's fine.
We'll do.
But did you know?
FaceTime video so that you can tell who's talking.
Yeah, that's fine. Hey, good morning.
Look at this guy. Now wait, can we get?
You guys seen it?
What?
Well, I could a minute ago. Let me see here. I gotta get on.
We're having some technological
I gotta get on
difficulties
FaceTime
going on
here. Now you guys might not be able to see us because, well,
yeah, you might just see the top of my garage.
we want the listeners to be able to hear you guys. So I'm putting your,
Do you want to see us? I don't even know if I have my video on.
Oh, well, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, to us, it's like, we probably know who's talking, but...
Yeah, but let's introduce you guys to our audience. So, without further ado, we got Chuck and Jeff.
Hello.
Good morning, guys.
Say hello to our viewers in Brussels, Belgium. No, I'm just kidding. I just keep going back to that.
Hey, guys, I was about to throw a random stat out there. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so Jay and I just kind of went through relievers who we feel comfortable as our RP1. And we came to this little subgroup of firemen. And one of the names in there was Reynaldo Lopez. And I've got a stat for you guys. Do you guys know who the first off-season transaction was each of the last 3 years in all of baseball?
Reynaldo Lopez.
What, that was this year. How about the previous 2 years? Any guesses?
First.
Huh?
I couldn't tell you. I'm busy winning basketball.
I'm sorry?
He's busy winning fantasy basketball
Okay.
at that point in the year.
He's already
Yeah,
throwing shit.
no, that's true. Because these transactions happen right around Halloween or a little after. So in 2022, the first major, we'll say major because minor league moves happen all the time. In 2022, the first major offseason transaction was Andrew Haney
Oh, wow.
being signed. to the Dodgers.
Oh, wow.
Now, the Dodgers worked wonders with him that year, and he turned that into a big contract with the Rangers next year. In 2023, in 2020, no, I'm sorry, guys. So, Haney got signed in the 2021 fall for his 2022 performance. So, the first offseason transaction in 2022 leading into 2023 was Zach Eflin.
The Rays?
Yeah. And so, for this year, that first offseason transaction was Reynaldo Lopez to the Braves.
It definitely says something. The last couple of years, we've seen how, let's call it quality starting pitching, or, your workhorses and your guys who can throw at least 150 innings. Those guys are extremely valuable in baseball right now. You see these guys making $10 to $20 million a year. The better ones, obviously, it's even more. But, yeah, those guys are extremely valuable in baseball, and there are only so many of them, right? You got to sign those guys. Like right now, you've got Jordan Montgomery is an example of, is he the very best, starting pitcher in baseball? No, he's one of the free agents that's available right now, and somebody's gonna make their team significantly better by signing him.
Well, yeah. Hopefully, it's one of those teams that we talked about earlier, Jay. Like, what I'm going to say,
right.
The reason I threw that stat at you
utilize him the very best.
Not just like, oh my gosh, okay, so Andrew Haney signed, great year. He was the first transaction. All right, Zach Eflin signed, first transaction, great year. No, this is what I'm getting at. A few years ago when Haney signed, who'd he sign with? It was the Dodgers. The Dodgers signed him so early in the offseason that they were able to have the whole offseason to work with him to change some things with his repertoire. Who signed Eflin? The Rays signed Eflin. The Rays had a whole offseason to work with his repertoire. Who signed Reynaldo Lopez? The Braves. These are the teams, again, the Braves, the Dodgers, the Rays, the Mariners, the Twins, to some respects the Astros, that have a known track record of being able to take pitchers and take the good and really make it shine.
Okay,
Can I chime in real quick, Jason?
Yeah,
please do.
Didn't they talk about stretching him out when they signed him?
That's what I just said.
They still are.
That's what I just said, and I'm trying to I've been trying to look for headlines, more recent ones, if they're going to do that. Can they successfully do that, Chuck?
They could turn him into like you were saying, maybe like a 2 to 3 inning guy.
I agree.
They've tried, and he's done that. Yeah, he's done that with the White Sox too. And like I said, he's had periods of success where he's been able to go out there and throw quality starts. But throw 6 or 7 innings.
To Chuck's credit, I think Chuck got the hammer on the nail. If Reynaldo Lopez for the Braves with that vaunted offense and their really deep pitching is throwing 2 to 3 innings, he's going to throw more often, which is going to lead to accumulating wins and holds, and strikeouts and good ratios. I mean, right? Is that what we're going for? I mean, I hope that he doesn't win the 5th starter job and start starting every 5 days.
It reminds me of Nick Pivetta towards the end of last year.
Yeah.
Wow.
I had him, and he didn't get the start, but man, when he came in, he was lights out.
I agree with you. I feel like in the starting role as an outright starter, I just don't know if it's sustainable to be real successful. No. But in that middle role, yes.
Absolutely. Hey, so guys, I don't want to bore you. We asked you to come on air for a reason. I know it's early and we're not all the early birds or have had enough coffee, but you guys made a major trade yesterday in our fantasy Premier League, and I want to get you guys' take on how you're feeling the morning after making a move like that. Can we?
I I would just like to thank you, Jason, because through you, all things are possible.
I agree.
This trade involved 4 players that I think one belonged to Jason or Jason was pursuing. He also brought us together in the text thread when he made an offer on Juan Soto.
Wow.
In a text thread with me and Jeff. And then Jeff texts me on the side and he's like, hey, what do you think about doing something around Trout and Snell? And I was like,
And Diaz.
Wow.
Oh, you're welcome.
That was my first offer. My first offer was straight Soto for Trout, Snell, Diaz. And then he needed to shape it after that.
I just want to take a little bit of credit for making this possible by drafting Tim Anderson over Blake Snell in last year's draft. What a dumbass move that was.
hey, where have you been this offseason?
Where have I been?
Sign. I'm curious.
Oh, where Tim Anderson or me?
Yeah, Tim Anderson.
You?
Oh, me. He's talking about me.
Yeah.
I've been. Oh man, I don't know. I've been
Are
so
you in the
busy.
lab like Dr. Dre? What's going on?
Kind of. I mean, not with baseball. I mean, I would love to say I've spent all this time like trying to figure out. Now I'm desperately trying to figure out how to get better in the Premier League because my rebuild is an absolute freaking shambles because of all the decisions that were made
So
in 2023.
But,
But
Jay.
I've been very busy. I've been in school, working, family stuff. But I'm trying to get back into this, trying to get my voice heard in the Fantasy Premier League and the Forever League. But just got busy with life, really.
I hear you.
Ever since the playoffs started, really, it's been like this. I had like this mad dash.
But that's the grind that we're all in. You know,
Oh,
we all
totally.
get families.
Yeah,
We're all-
it just
we're
so
all
happened to
working.
coincide with the playoffs where I got completely just not blindsided, but I just got the floor wiped, or Luke just wiped the floor with me. And then, so I spent the first 2 weeks of the playoffs just getting my ass kicked. And then finally was able to beat Daniel and get like one redeeming, 7th place victory. But it was brutal, man. It was one of the worst experiences. Like, I got to be honest with you. And a lot of it was my doing.
Jay, I'm sorry, I got to interrupt you here.
Go ahead.
Chuck and Jeff have this amazing trade to talk about, and
Yes,
all you
yes.
can talk about is how brutal the end of your year was. But
he
on top
asked
of that,
what's been going
you
on.
have no pitching keepers, and I'm sitting here with Chris Sale, and give me a minuscule offer, and we've got a deal.
We've done
live
this
on
before,
air.
Jason. We've been down this road. I can't give you my, 8th round draft pick for Chris Sale. I need that pick. Okay, let's go back to these guys' trade.
Have fun with Dean Kramer and Tyler
Chuck,
Wells.
I thought your keepers were looking so good before this trade already. So my first thought with this trade was, not that they're not awesome now, because
let's
they
announce
are.
this trade. Let's announce the
Okay.
trade. So
Let's
we're
put the names
listen.
out there.
So, hey Jeff, do you want to announce this?
Sure, I'd be glad to.
Okay.
So, Backcountry gets the rights to Juan Soto, Noel Bay Marte, Brian Bello, and Cade Horton. Now, he's an NA guy in our league, and that's kind of cool, too. We can get to that later. And then I received from Backcountry, and I'm 108 Stitches. Just call me Stitches. Trout. So Mike Trout, Blake Snell, Edwin Diaz, and Tyler Black, another NA guy. So it was a big blockbuster trade there. There's a lot of names. There's 8 names
There
there.
is.
Four of them came from you.
There's a
I
lot
can go
to
through that,
digest.
too.
Seriously, how many of these names have run through Jason at one
Well,
point?
I can tell you. I thought about this last night. So you guys want another fun stat? Let's take the NAs out. Let's talk about the 6 players: Trout, Diaz, Snell, Soto, Marte, and Bayo. I can tell you 5 of these 6 players have been through me at least once, if not multiple times, in my team in the Premier League. Can you guys name the one player that has never been a cutter?
Out of that.
Soto?
So
I don't know.
Final answer is Soto?
Marte.
Marte. Okay.
I'm going to say Noel V. Marte.
Okay. I'm going to have fun with this, guys. So here's the thing. You're all wrong. So, by a technicality, I own Juan Soto because he was my first ever pick in the Fantasy Premier League, whom I then turned around and flipped to Bird Law immediately in my deal for Garrett Cole. The name that I've never touched or owned is Edwin Diaz. But good guesses, guys.
You are full of history lessons. I love that.
My two thoughts with this trade was, number one, like, Backcountry's list of keepers was already, like, off the charts good, okay? And then this happens, and I'm like, okay, so I'm assuming he's keeping all these guys, right? That, you know, those two guys, and I had to ask, like, I'm assuming he's keeping Marte and
So this is a
Bayo.
good question.
And then my second thought was, as much as I love Juan Soto, if I'm Jeff, I'm taking this trade because it just, I mean, it's like you're getting a basically an ace, a great outfielder, or, you know, great is an understatement, and in Mike Trout, and then you're getting an elite closer. So, you know, as much as I covet Juan Soto, I'm taking this trade.
So from my perspective, I was having issues, right? Because I don't know if I was going to keep Edwin Diaz.
Okay.
I picked him up at the end of the season as a free agent, just someone to have to use for ammunition in the offseason. Maybe keep him, maybe not. When Yahoo did their pre-rankings, I was hoping Diaz was going to be ranked higher than Trout and Snell, so that way I could keep, you know, Snell, Valdez, and lose maybe Mike Trout and Edwin Diaz.
Yep.
So that didn't happen. So I was talking with Jeff yesterday. I'm like, I don't know who I'm going to keep between Edwin Diaz and Gavin Williams. So that's when he presented me with the offer. So Diaz, I don't know if I was ever going to keep him.
So this allowed you to keep one other player that maybe was on the outside looking in?
Gavin Williams.
Gavin Williams. All right.
And he is.
That answers that question.
Now, hold on. Come on. For the listening audience, Chuck, you're from what region of the country?
I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, baby.
Yeah, so you are a Cleveland Guardians fan.
So, yes, I've been following Gavin Williams for a while now, and I'm definitely, I guess, what you would call a believer.
Yeah, I think I am too.
So, but I want to hear more about, with this trade, Chuck, I'm assuming Noel V. Marte and Brian Bayo are like your 6, 7 with Gavin Williams as your last 3 keepers.
So Bayo is an insurance policy. If one of my pitchers gets hurt, I'm going to keep him, or if I end up making a deal. So right now my keepers are looking like Naylor at first, Marte at second, Xander Bogaerts at shortstop, who will be on the market as soon as Jackson Holliday's called up. Marte at third, Juan Soto at left. And then pitching-wise, I have Framber Valdez still, Gavin Williams, and Christian Javier.
Wow.
So, I mean, even with the trade, I feel super confident. And, you know, you don't often get a chance to get a guy like Juan Soto his first year at Yankee Stadium. So,
I mean, it's a contract year, too. So, you know he's going to go max effort.
And you got younger, you know. You got younger, which is another thing that just makes me fear you even more, Chuck. You got more
don't listen to this
talent.
guy. He is such an ageist.
I am.
He got younger. He just because of Mike Trout. Throw Mike Trout out. How's he getting younger?
He's got more
Cade
talent.
Horton, dude. Cade Horton. Look up Cade Horton. That dude is a monster.
This is what I'm saying, Jason.
He's going to be a
What do you
stud.
mean? What do you mean? He's got Bayo here, who is like
Bayo debuted in 2022.
Bayo is not a keeper.
I know.
He's trying to argue on air that you got younger with this trade. You did. You traded Trout away, but Jeff, this is no slight to you. Don't worry, you're not going to be father time with this deal. Okay, you still got youth on your side.
Oh, I'm okay.
This is Father Time himself speaking right now, so you know that what I'm saying is true.
Mike Trout is only 32 years old. And with his profile,
Jason, are you sitting here trying to tell me that he's still got his legs under him after all the crap that he's gone through?
No, I'm
Can't
not.
even play because his calf is literally falling apart. I'm sorry.
Do you guys really know what you were getting
Tell
into?
anyone.
Do you guys know what you were getting into by coming on air?
I love it.
All right, let's hear from Jeff a little bit.
Yes,
Jeff, tell me
Jeff.
what this trade does for the makeup of your team. Tell us about your keepers a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Your intro of the trade, you said half of what I was thinking, so you were spot on there. But I was not sitting easy with some of the maneuvers I had made to get myself into the point I was yesterday, which was weak picks, and those are still weak. But my keepers were also weak. I had a back-end keeper problem. And I actually was getting ready to throw some egg on my face because of that Bello trade with Jason. I had realized I wanted Tanner Scott instead of Bello as my last keeper. And I was just getting ready to say, I just gave up the 3 spots in the first round for no reason. But then I was able to start the thing. Jason got us together, and I was trying to see how I could pivot out of all of this mess. In my opinion, it was a mess. And I was able to recap value out of the Noelve Marte trade that I made 3 years ago with Jason to move back in the draft. So that was part of something. And then I got to use the Bello part after all. So I felt better about that. So I didn't lose value in that trade either. And then I bundled it all together to balance out and strengthen my core 8. And I think I did that in a big way. If you look down my keepers roster now that I posted last night, it's strong. And Jay, you mentioned it. I think it's strong anyway. It makes me have a chance to compete this year.
Yeah, and I used a strong word with Blake Snell. I used the word ace, and I don't use it lightly, but when you, in terms of there are only so many of these guys, right? There are only so many of these elite pitchers, and he's on the
We have not
threshold.
gotten to our starting pitcher preview, and I'm sorry to shatter your dreams, Jeff and Jay. Blake Snell is not an ace. He is a top tier pitcher.
This is a relative term. Okay.
We'll define
When
ace.
By the way, he is my ace.
See,
Okay,
that's
I like
what I'm
that.
saying.
I like that.
Just like Zach Wheeler is my ace. He's not the very best, but when he's your best pitcher, you can feel okay about that. You can feel good about that.
I
feel even
like
better
this.
about Snell probably than Zach Wheeler, just because I'm an ageist.
Can I ask Jason a question?
So,
Is
Jeff,
the Snell hate rooted in the Shane Bieber for Blake Snell trade? Is that why you don't like him?
no,
Yeah, Jason.
no. That's a good point. That's a really
You
good point. I
drafted
did.
Blake Snell last year, right?
For every great move I make, I've got two moves that people can heckle me on. It's okay, Chuck. I'll eat crow on that one. And I came to you. I think I remember. I was at my daughter's gymnastics class last year when I was texting you about that deal. I did not know the wheels were going to fall off Bieber's tire like that.
That wasn't a whiskey trade. That was a gymnastics trade.
That was a gymnastics trade.
Okay.
Gymnastics, man.
Gymnastics.
Dude,
Yeah.
I mean, my knock on Blake Snell has always been the whip being, to call him an ace and then to have the whip as it
The
was.
thing with Blake-
But that has gotten better, so I have to eat crow. I have to just say, I was wrong.
The thing
So
with Blake
last
Snell,
year-
though, I think you guys will probably all agree with me. First of all, we're playing in terms of keepers, so we're not really investing based on his peaks and valleys. But, in redraft, when you're talking about drafting Snell, you want to draft him when his value's low and sell him when his value's high. So, I mean, I think Blake Snell is an awesome, starting pitcher. And, Jeff, I'm glad you feel like you got an upgrade to your rotation. I just wanted to clarify for the audience, and this is not sour grapes over a trade that I totally lost. I just don't see Blake Snell as an ace. I see him more as a fringe SP1, SP2.
Can I address your audience on that real quick?
Please, please.
All right. So as a Blake Snell owner last year, right, there were 12 games where he gave up 0 runs and struck out at least 9 hitters. I mean,
exactly.
You can't ask for much more out of the first pitcher you draft.
That's right.
You know, he's going to have regular guy games every now and then, but he's also going to provide those games where it's just like, wow, what is happening?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Chuck, I love those stats. Do you think Blake Snell was motivated, though, because last year was a contract year?
I think he's motivated in his rap career. I heard he started a little league team in Seattle. I don't know his background very well in terms of motivation. What I do know is...
I'm just having to speculate. It sounds to me like he's an on-year, off-year, on-year, off-year, and it's a contract year going into...
Well,
I think the value you could draft him at in a redraft league right now, because no one knows where he's going, right? And he is a 2-time Cy Young winner who had 2.1 ERA after starting he had a bad start last year, right? That's why you got rid of him. So he corrected all that. I think the value is high.
In this trade,
go ahead.
In this trade, the biggest shift by far, in my opinion, was Soto. So I was trying to grab as much value as humanly possible for that big chip. And I was willing to take on every question mark that goes with the value, because I'm just grabbing it for value. If you would have seen my keepers beforehand, they were crummy at the end. And so I was willing to take on Blake Snell. You know, there's a month of the season where he goes absent, and you're like, what the hell did I get Blake Snell for? But and then Edwin Diaz coming off of the injury, the Achilles. So I had to take on every question mark.
They
and all the value I could, wherever the value came from.
We're splitting hairs here. The thing, my take on this is you guys both did great. This really is.
I agree.
You don't see a lot of these trades, but this is a win-win trade for both teams. And
and I will say,
driving this podcast, it's my job to be a contrarian and to split hairs. Blake Snell is a very polarizing player.
I've been on both ends with him. Now I'm like more of a believer. I used to be out on the outside with Blake Snell to the extreme. Like I was like, I will never draft this guy, but I have come around in a big way.
My worry with him is he's going to get a mega contract on a team that does not develop or coach their pitching well, and you're going to see the bad side of Blake Snell that you don't want to see.
That's a valid theory. That I think that's very valid. I will say too that Bayo is one of the few players. Speaking of value, he's one of the few remaining starting pitchers that are out there that a team like myself might be looking for as my 8th keeper.
I hear you, Jay.
Okay, there's a short list. It's like him.
Why didn't you come talking
Jordan
to me?
Montgomery.
I had Bayo.
I
talked to
you
you
are
about
one of
this
the other
earlier in the
teams.
offseason.
I'm easier to trade with, Jason.
Right, exactly.
All right. Hey, there's one more thing I do want to say about this trade. All the players we talked about, there's one player who I feel like is the biggest steal of this trade, and I don't think it swings it one way or the other. But, Jeff, I think you acquiring Edwin Diaz may turn out to be the biggest steal from this trade because, how soon we forget how great he was in 2022. And I really do feel like we alluded to earlier before you guys came on, he is a lockdown relief pitcher. And so for all the question marks that I'm giving you your way with Snell, you're answering that with Edwin Diaz. So I want to compliment you on that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And going out and getting a big-time closer like that allows me to play different ways. I can now have the ability to control the saves category against any given opponent. And if I want to add a back-end saves guy like Estevez or Finnegan, a Lang or whatever, I can supplement it and not supplement it depending on who I'm playing. So I can control that category a little bit better. And it gives me more playing ideas of how to beat my opponent. It gives me more options.
As well as the strikeout category. When you have a reliever that throws as many strikeouts as a starter, it gives you a leg up in that category as well.
Yeah, whip too.
Whip, exactly.
So what do you guys got going on this morning?
Can I answer that one?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I've got a Monster Kids games schedule today. Up to 5 games. Starting at 9 a.m. in a town not here so soon. I have to get off the air, but then it ends at 9 p.m. up in your neck of the woods in Westfield.
Wow.
For soccer. So basketball, soccer, basketball.
Wow.
And I have 3 kids, and one of them, if she wins, she goes to the championship game, and that's at noon. And then I have a son that plays basketball at 1, and then a son that plays soccer at 2 and 7 p.m. And so, yeah, it's going to be a busy sports day. I love sports, so I'm good with all of that. And that's my family time for the day.
I'm glad you're telling us this, Jeff. I hope that you have a wonderful day. It sounds like a lot. But that's just the life of having kids and family. You know, congratulations, Jeff, though. You're just being a proud dad. That's so awesome.
That is awesome.
Well, thank you.
Yes. And Chuck, you're an aspiring father too, aren't you?
Yeah.
You ready for this shit?
No.
You
I'm gonna have
sure?
a nice little Saturday, maybe go to Home Depot. I don't know. That crazy.
Ooh.
Hey, that's a reference from what movie?
Old school. Right?
Old School.
Yeah.
Just get that credit card from Home Depot, and I don't know, maybe that's where you open that big line of credit and just
God.
Just get everything you want.
Is this show sponsored by Home Depot?
I hope. We hope.
No, we
to have
are
some
at the point.
sponsors
This
soon,
show
but-
is sponsored
but no,
by
not yet.
Vagisil at this point. So we're working our way towards Home Depot, Jack.
I got you.
Yeah, we'll get there.
You guys, I'm gonna give you guys free form. You guys are amazing listeners to our show regularly, and we so appreciate not only competing against you guys, but you guys following our podcast. Is there anything on there that you guys want to discuss or talk about, or any questions that you guys have?
I thought I got the invite to come on today because more than once I claimed I was your number 1 fan. Is that why?
Well, absolutely. And I think that buys you more airtime beyond today, throughout 2024. And I've always said that I want more like regular contributions from all the owners in this league, and then branching out into the other league as well. So yes, I hope this is the first of many appearances by both of you guys.
We appreciate the opportunity from the Fantasy Baseball Advocates. You guys are running a great show. I enjoy listening and learning. You guys give me a lot of good information. You do all that extra digging for us, and then I just take your ideas from there.
And we talked about this earlier that, Jeff, you're like a little bit newer to fantasy baseball, and in the beginning of you joining our league, I would not have thought that, because you were just like all in.
Oh, yeah.
And you were talking so much smack, which you told us was that you were intentionally doing and adding to your game, because little did I know that you were a seasoned fantasy sports veteran, but not necessarily baseball. But man, you came in guns a blazing,
Jeff.
and you changed. You set our league on fire in a similar way that Jason did, just with your own flair. But you, I feel like you set our league on fire to the way that Jason did with all of his trades and transactions.
Well, I apologize if I stepped on any toes on the way. There were
Dude, I thought it was
don't
great,
apologize.
Jeff. This is that was my introduction to you. Like, that's how I got to know you. And I would have thought that you were just the biggest smack talker in the world.
Yeah, but Jay,
and I loved it. And I thought it was great for our league because just in general, like, we have a lot of established owners. We have a lot of longtime owners. And it gets a little stale after a while. It's like an old married couple, you know? It's like that we had like the 7-year itch, and then we brought Jason and Jeff in and Chuck and everybody else, and it's just completely revitalized our league.
I mean, this is a good... these are some good points you're making, Jay. Not points to be forgotten, but... I also want to say, Jeff, I did introduce you to our audience before you guys were even on air. I basically said that, you know, if you are a fantasy baseball position player, you would be a closer, hands down. Because you just...
Why don't you ask Daniel
Electric.
about that bird law? That's a good question for her. But yeah, that's a good...
I mean, you can be a bit erratic at times, but most of the time, you're throwing gas and nobody before anyone knows what's going on.
It's controlled chaos. It's, what do we call that?
Yeah. Organized chaos. And I loved your point there. I just wanted to add spice to the league. I think it makes it better.
You absolutely did that.
So it's all in fun every single time.
I also want to say something I haven't said before. Chuck, the first year I was in the league, I took over this dog shit team. It's the worst roster I've ever seen.
What name was it? What was the name again?
I don't remember. Hoosier or something. No, it wasn't.
Was it Harvey's Wallbangers?
Maybe.
Harvey's
something
Wallbangers.
with
Was that your...
I don't know. Anyway, Chuck, you were first place that year. You didn't win. Luke won that year. It was 2019. But I remember seeing you, and you were first place by a lot. And I thought, like, whoa, this league's... I mean, first of all, this dog shit roster's, like, insane. And you were sitting up there at the top. And so, but before I ever got to know you, I was like, oh,
Crash and burn.
man, like, this guy knows what he's doing. I don't remember who was on your roster.
I
know
drafted
you got
Acuna at 16 overall that year.
Oh,
after
okay,
his
there you go.
Like, I already had Mike Trout.
Oh, my gosh.
So yeah, it was a good year, and then I just pulled
Trout
what
and
Jeff
Acuna.
did last year in the Forever League. It's just you could have the best team, and then you get to the playoffs, and man, it's a crapshoot.
I have said that before, that the guys that get you there are not the guy. And I learned this lesson from Jake. He's the one that, I can't say I came up with this on my own, but the guys that get you there are not typically the guys who win you the playoffs.
Nope.
You have to shift and move. Chuck, tell us a little bit about your fantasy background, and remind me, how long have you been in the Premier League?
So I joined the Premier League, I think, in 2013 or 2014.
Oh my gosh! See, and I made it sound like you, 10 years.
So yeah, I was working with Luke.
Yes.
And we were just talking baseball, because we would have to walk the kids from the middle school to the elementary school, which is like half a block down the road, for like a combined parent pickup thing. And every day we would talk baseball, and I was kind of nudging him, like, if you get an opening, dude, let me in this league. And yeah, eventually it all worked out. So I did fantasy football when I was a kid. I've done baseball since probably 2008, 2009.
Okay. Yeah.
Just random leagues until I got into the Premier League, and then I've been a loyalist.
You guys remember when Kerry Wood was closing in back in 2008?
I was going to bring that up at the beginning when you were talking about the Cubs and
the Carlos Marmol situation. I mean,
Yes.
fantasy baseball is forever grateful to him because of the Marmol strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chuck, you...
Kosuke Fukudome.
Oh,
You know, it
yes.
is hard to get that Marvel strategy to actually work. I mean, to get it in play and running. I've tried a few years.
It worked for me back in 2010. You can't do it anymore.
Yeah, you can.
Now I'm remembering the sliders. Oh, my God, the sliders. Who, has the only I'm thinking of Denelson Lamet is like the only guy that I can think of that throws that many sliders, and that dude can't even make it in the major leagues right now.
Well, he didn't have a second pitch.
Did his arm fall off or what?
I think so. A couple times it fell off, and then he came back, but just could not be effective. And it's like if you can just not swing at that slider. But Chuck, you are like the brainchild of this league. You have made more smart moves than, and I mean I gotta. There's plenty of other names I can mention there, but you have just continued to get, if it was possible, better and better in this league. And I feel like I've been copying Jason's moves for the last couple years. I feel like I need to start copying your moves a little bit more.
Moneyball, baby. Just try to moneyball it, like think of like the big picture.
Extracting value. That's what I was going to say. That is what you have continued to do, like with all of your trades. It just seems like you just keep getting better and better.
Yeah, like even with the Juan Soto deal yesterday, there was a point where I was like, I'm not going to do it. I even texted Jeff. I was like, nope. And when I was thinking about it, like if I do make the move for Juan Soto, like let's say I am out of it come July, like there is that option of trading him for extreme value. Like he's going to be extremely valuable at some point in July.
Sure. So, I think so.
You always got to think of the next move before you make the first move.
That's what I was going to do if I didn't trade him.
Yeah.
Guys, real quick, I need to go, so I just want to say thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for coming on.
And thanks. And one more thing, Chuck should be all of our heroes because he won both the Forever League and the Premier League in the same year.
That's right.
It doesn't get
Thanks for acknowledging that.
You won a few side pots that year too, didn't you?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And you took all that money and went to Home Depot, it sounds like, and spent it all on home
nice
improvement.
Little Saturday.
You keep it up, guys. I'm out of here. Bye.
See you, Jeff.
Bye, Jeff.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's just us and Chuck. We've been talking to him for a long time about, and I'm so glad you brought up how long you've been in the league because it's just, I feel like me getting to know you has been such a slow process that I had forgotten that you'd been in our league that long. I was going to think it was like 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. Like, it doesn't feel like it's been that long. But I feel like with fantasy, like, sometimes it takes a while for those relationships to develop, Like,
sure.
At some point, we're just dudes, like, messaging each other about random trades.
Hey, that's an everyday thing.
Yes, we are.
Hey, Chuck, I want to steal a little bit of your airtime here. So, like, we picked relievers this week for a reason because, we're going to start with the vast outfield our next podcast. So there's going to be a lot of preparation for that and then subsequently starting pitching. We hit down, I identified Jay as well. Identified 50 relievers. Now, we talked about different formats, different strategies. But we're going to continue this RP podcast and finish it on like a combo like RP and just the start of like outfield. Because this interview has been so great, but I don't want to be on air for 2 hours. So, but right. Chuck, what I want to get at with you is before we got you on, we covered two groupings of pitchers. Ones that we call lockdown RP1, and one that we call RP1 with results. So, obviously things are fluid, things could change, but the way I looked at it, Edwin Diaz, Joan Duran, Devin Williams, Manuel Clase, Pete Burbank, Josh Hader. No specific ranking there. They belong in that top group, lockdown RP1s. And then I've got Andres Munoz, Ryan Hesley, Evan Phillips, Tanner Scott, Raisel Iglesias, David Bednar, Camilo Duvall, Jordan Romano, and Clay Holmes in the RP1 with real results. So basically, I would feel comfortable with any of those guys as my relief pitcher one in any format, really. I want to throw this question back at you. Would you feel the same way? And if so, like, also, second question, how many of these guys would you want?
So I think at the top I'd have Hader right now, just because him going to the Astros is super exciting.
That's a hot take. I love that.
And Clase, he scares me. As a Guardians fan, he scares me.
I agree there. 100%.
He's been slipping a little.
Yeah.
And that,
Is there someone that's going to take his volume away, though? Anyone that's going to take his job?
volume be there, but his sink. I think he throws like his big thing when he came up was he threw a 98 mile per hour splitter along with a 102 mile an hour fastball.
Mm-hmm.
I think his velocity's been down, and I think he's lost movement on those pitches.
Yeah.
That's the scary thing. I'm so glad you said that, Chuck. I keep hammering it in. It's not always not about velocity. It's about, how much break is on these pitches, because that's why Dylan Bunny flamed out. Like, he was able to throw heat, but it was on a flat plane. Like, it was a meatball. You saw it coming. There was no movement.
And I brought up the jump in Class A's numbers in his peripheral stats. And the fact that his strikeout rate is not nearly as high as these other guys. He's throwing 1K an inning, which is great.
Yeah.
But it's not. Edwin Diaz doubles that.
Right.
Until Cleveland gets a guy that I'm worried is going to take his job, though, I'm not ready to take him out of that group.
Sure.
I mean,
he's 100% exclusively a closer,
But what happens when they deal him to the Dodgers? Like, let's play
Devil's
imagination.
advocate. Yeah, let's do it.
Guardians are out of contention in July. They deal him to the Dodgers. Is he going to be the closer? Is he going to be a setup guy?
It doesn't matter, and I'm glad you said that. He goes to the Dodgers, in my opinion, his value increases because that's one of the 5 teams that I said knows how to do stuff with pitchers. So, fine. Give Class A an art. Now, if you're not in a Holtz League, then, yeah, his value dropped big time. But in Holtz League, for the Dodgers, sure. I mean, he was never his ratios have been getting worse. His strikeouts aren't desirable, but they're not bad. They're adequate. If he went to the Dodgers in that deal, his holds would go up. They would probably fix whatever's going on with him, which I have a feeling he's just had too much of a workload over the last 3 years. So he reduces innings from 72, which Jay said earlier, so funny. He had 72 and 2/3 innings like 2 years in a row. I'd say if he goes to the Dodgers and they reduce his workload to 55, 60 innings, they're going to be 55, 60 innings packed with holds and better ratios.
Terry Francona would send them out when they were down 2-1 in the ninth, like on the road, or like it was just he made some questionable calls with Clase, like sending him out a lot of times when he didn't really need to.
Yeah, I don't. It is. It's a weird situation. Like, and I said, like, I wonder if, like, he had, like, if he went over 73 innings, was he going to get some kind of bonus? Because they just capped him off right there. But, yeah, I agree with you. I don't know what it would do to the guy's head to put him out there in those situations. But
Chuck, I want to get your opinion. What are your thoughts on Clay Holmes? Do you think he's strong enough to be considered an RP1 in most leagues?
So I have a little emotional tie to Clay Holmes back before he was good.
Yeah.
I didn't like him. So I have this thing where once I write someone off, I don't really revisit that very often. So I haven't really revisited it since then. I think I owned him in the Forever League when he got good, and I traded him to your good buddy, the Finest. And he I think that was part of a Corey Seager deal.
Oh, God.
I think it was Clay Holmes and a third round pick for Corey Seager.
wow.
Which now, hell yeah, it's a great deal. But at the time, I was like, I thought it was pretty good back then too.
Can you confirm that? He traded a third round. He traded
I can't.
Corey Seager for Clay Holmes in a third-round pick, which for a listening audience isn't a traditional third-round pick. That's like an average draft positional player position in like the one teams.
They wanted a closer bad.
He traded Seager for that.
His ERA and whip, his ERA might have been like 0.9, and his whip was like 0.5.
Yeah.
This was probably 2 or 3 years ago. And it was, he was just running it.
Yeah, we saw a little regression from 2022 to 2023 with him. His ERA or his WHIP was right around 1 in 2022, and it went up to 1.17 in 2023. ERA jumped up a little bit. He had 24 saves and 5 holds last year.
That was a great buying opportunity, Chuck.
And there's a ballpark thing there where he's closing at Yankee Stadium. Is he still closing?
Yeah, he's listed. If you look at roster resource, he's listed as their closer, and I don't think there's anybody else there that's going to take that job from him. And he didn't do bad last year. He did good. Looking at Jay's stats here, he's thrown. He doesn't have the workload concerns that you got a guy like Clase. He's thrown 63 and 2/3 and 63 innings back-to-back years. His whips are less than 1.2, which, as I said, what a goal is. And he's got a little over a strikeout per inning. So I feel like he's got a solid floor.
Yeah. Do you trust him? Would you
That's
trust
what
him
I'm saying. I'm glad you asked that. He is the last reliever I would trust to be my best relief pitcher.
To get results, He's on your last name. He's the last name on your second group.
These names are, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 names. Okay. Out of 16 names of all of baseball, there's only 16 names that I would feel comfortable and adequate as my relief pitcher one. Now, I'd say I wouldn't be excited, but I would be comfortable with Clay Holmes being that 16th guy.
Well, yeah, who's 17? Who's 18?
So that gets into his fireman category of...
Well, I would go to RP2. You're looking at guys like... Kenley Jansen, Ryan Presley, Paul Sewald, Adbert Alzolay.
Let me ask you this. When it comes to Clay Holmes, right, and so you have an option of drafting him, or you have an option of drafting a starting center fielder, say. And, for me, my immediate thought would be get the starting center fielder and just punt saves.
I think a lot of it depends on your team needs and where you're at in the draft table. Can you get a guy like, let's say, Jaron Duran or Jung-Hoo Lee? Or, to a guy that is probably being ranked. Well, I shouldn't say Jung-Hoo Lee is... That's going to be an interesting one for a different show, but he's just coming over, and not a lot of people know about him. But, let's say Jaron Duran. He's ranked way too low. I think he's got a chance to a breakout season, but you can get him later in the draft. But no, Chuck, to answer your question, I wouldn't be gunning to draft Clay Holmes. He would just have to fall to me, and I would have to have a need for an RP1.
So I feel like I would just be at that point, I would be like, you know what? I'm going to...
I would probably rank...
later.
I would probably rank Robert Stevenson ahead of him, especially with the cutter that the Rays helped him develop last year. But he went to the Angels, and the Angels, the Angels aren't going to get as many. The other thing that's holding Clay Holmes up for me is I feel like the Yankees are going to get a lot more wins this year. And so I do think that he's going to have 30-plus saves if he stays in that job.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Chuck. I think if you go to Jason's next grouping of players and if you could wait one more round and draft Paul Sewald or, I don't know, I guess I would say
See, you're
Adbert
saying
Alzolai.
I don't know. It's getting to that point.
It's getting to that
to
point.
where you're like, I gotta have an RP1 by now. So I think, Chuck, would you agree with me if we all three of us concluded to say we talked about a lot of relievers here? You better have your first relief pitcher by the time Clay Holmes comes up.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, he's probably your last chance.
You may as well just maybe punt it in.
If you're stuck with Clay Holmes, there's this website, I forget, I think it's called like the Closer Report, and it kind of shows you the guys who like might fall out of contention as closers, and who the top guys who would replace him are. Have you guys ever followed that site?
Is it Closer Monkey or?
It might be Closer Monkey.
I've looked at Closer Monkey.
I follow
for sure.
a lot of like Fangraphs and pitcher lists and for stuff with pitching. But I've probably seen it. I can't say for sure.
But I do like when they kind of...
Is it the one that has like
the committee,
next in line
security
committee? Yeah, I've seen
Yeah,
that.
like,
And
in the middle relief.
it's a useful tool. I just forget what's the source.
I think it's Closer Report. Let me check.
There's a couple of them. There's a couple of them. Did you? Yeah.
I was going to say, why are we checking this? We really probably should wrap this show up. Going an hour and a half. Man, this is going to be fun.
I mean,
to
you
listen
read
to.
your whole list of RPs with results. Did you read your RP2 list?
No, I didn't.
Man.
And I think we should get to that in a next
Closer
podcast. Yeah.
Do we need a whole
That's
nother
good tool.
podcast about relievers? Holy
No,
crap, dude.
No, we need to wrap this up and then start outfield. That's what we'll end up doing, or something like that.
All right.
But I mean, let's not take the shine away from this podcast. You know, our listening audience got to know Chuck and then Jeff, and this has been great having you on, Chuck. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Best. I hope you have a good weekend. Enjoy the rest of your fatherless days. It's a joy. Trust me. Being a dad, I would not want it taken away from me for the world. But there's a lot of stress coming your way, man.
It's worth it. That's what we just have to say.
Yeah. All right, Chuck.
Totally
We're gonna
worth it.
sign off. You want to sign off with us?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. So this is Jason
I'm Jay.
and our special guest.
This is Chuck.
Thanks for listening, guys.
See ya.
Be well.